Good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome to today's budget hearing for Education and Economic Development, bringing it to order. We'll be beginning with the Maryland Higher Education Commission and with two of our great budget analysts today. We'll both have Sarah Baker and Kelly Norton.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start with online course enrollment on page 4. Exhibit 1 shows the in and out of state enrollments at Maryland institutions. As you see, enrollment significantly increased by 149% in fall 2020, reflecting the impact of institutions teaching most courses remotely. As institutions return to more normal operations in fall 21, online enrollments declined by almost 40%. However, the number of students enrolled on these online courses exceeds pre-pandemic levels. Turning to Exhibit 2 on page 5, this shows the top 5 Maryland institutions with the highest online enrollments. Again, you see the impact of teaching courses remotely in fall 2020, in which institutions that did not have a strong online presence before the pandemic saw dramatic increases in enrollment. These institutions also experienced a rather large decline in 21 as they returned to in-person classes. But enrollment exceeds the 2019 levels, suggesting institutions found that they could meet the needs of students remotely and may have kept or developed online courses that were previously only offered on campus. Now, turning to the student loan debt tax credit, Exhibit 4 on page 8. The number of applications declined in 2020 and 21 tax years due to federal suspension of the student loan repayment. Applications increased almost 48% in the 22 tax years, which may reflect the uncertainty of when loan payments will resume. For the 2022 tax year, no distinction made between eligible for in-state tuition and those not eligible for in-state tuition. And this was done to maximize the number of awards and the dollar amount of each award. However, you see the number of recipients in 2022 is around the same number as those in the 2018 and 19 tax years. The impact on recipients can be seen on Exhibit 5 on page 9. By not making a distinction for the 22 tax years, those eligible for in-state tuition received a lower tax credit than in previous years, while those not eligible for in-state tuition received a slightly higher tax rate. Exhibit 6 on the same page shows the outstanding loan balance of recipients, and from 2018 to 2022, those with debts between $20,000 and under $50,000 comprise almost 41% of those receiving a tax credit. Moving to the allowance on page 11 and Exhibit 7. Overall, the allowance provides MHEC with $192.3 million, of which 71% funds the Selinger formula. Education grants comprise 13% of the spending and administration 5%. Exhibit 8 on page 12 shows a proposed budget which increases 2.2% or $4.2 million after accounting for the various proposed deficiencies. Funding for Selinger increases $18.5 million, which is offset by the $22 million decrease related to the one-time funding for attorney's fees related to the HBCU settlement. There is $5 million to fund non-traditional pathways in which MHEC will work with higher education institutions on a strategy to strengthen pathways for community college and non-traditional students. I note there's $3.6 million for Save for College that bounces back to previous funding levels in 24 after a one-time withdrawal of funds to reflect actual disbursements in 23. And there are also decreases around $700,000 related to various deficiencies. Moving to the Selinger formula, Exhibit 9 on page 14 shows undergraduate enrollment and the number of undergraduate degrees awarded at the independent institutions. Between fall 2015 and 22, undergraduate enrollment has fallen 11.4%, and with the decline in enrollment, the number of undergraduate degrees has decreased 16.5% during the same time period. Exhibit 10 on page 15 shows the allocation of Selinger funds by institution. Funding increases 16.5% to 15.6% to $137.1 million in 24. And since 22, funding has grown 54.5% or $48.3 million. In fiscal 24, funding decreases 5.8% for the Notre Dame of Maryland. Now, this is funding is allocated based on the 2-year prior FTS enrollment at the institution and is shown on page 11, Exhibit 11 on page 16. While enrollment declined at all but 2 institutions in 22, enrollment at Notre Dame fell by 20.5%. Education grants are shown on Exhibit 12 on page 17. which increased $8.1 million, and this is mainly due to the $5 million for the non-traditional pathways. I do note that funding for the Wellmobiles decreased by $500,000 related to one-time purchase of 2 Wellmobiles. Issue 1 regarding the academic program approval study begins on page 19. I won't spend a lot of time on this since there was a briefing on this earlier in the session. But as you recall, Chapter 41 required DLS to hire a consultant to study MHEC's academic program approval process. So listed on the page are the areas the consultant was asked to look at. In the middle of page 20 is a list of their findings, which included that the current process contributes to an atmosphere of distrust, and the lack of adherence to timelines negatively impacts the ability of institutions to plan for new programs. There are 13 recommendations which are listed in the bottom of the page and continue on to page 21. It includes such things as clarification is needed regarding MHEC's authority to approve missions, that MHEC should discontinue the practice of allowing institutions to object to another institution's program proposals, and that MHEC develop measurable criteria for determining when a proposed program would be considered unreasonable or unnecessary duplication. The second issue regarding the status of the new financial aid system begins on page 22. And as you may remember, the fiscal 23 budget allocated $8 million from the dedicated purpose account to develop a new system. I note that the major information technology appendix in the budget books show that over $660,000 in special funds is budgeted in 24 to begin the project. However, these funds are not budgeted in MHEC, but they will be drawn down from the dedicated purpose account by budget amendment as expenses are incurred. So according to the current timeline, the project will be completed in 2026, and the estimated cost is $20.7 million, which includes $12.7 million in general funds. So listed at the bottom of the page and continuing on to page 23 are what the new system will be able to do. And we asked MHEC to comment on the status of the project. Now I'll turn it over to Kelly for the next couple of issues on Maryland 529.
Thank you. On page 23, there's a brief overview of the miscalculation affecting the prepaid college trust. After a fiscal compliance audit in 2019, the Maryland 529 tried to address the record-keeping issues that were brought up. While attempting to set a new earnings rate and simultaneously distribute the trust surplus, a miscalculation of account holders' earnings occurred in August of 2021. And between November 2021 and mid-April of 2022, account holders received incorrect end-of-year statements. Exhibit 13 on page 24 shows a sample of the year of end statements received by account holders. It shows that for some account holders, statements increased over 100% between 2020 and 2021. The large balances led to account holders to make crucial decisions based on these, unbeknownst to them, incorrect amounts. Once the inaccuracies were discovered, Maryland 529 froze the earnings on accounts in April 2022, leaving account holders access to prepaid semesters, but not refunds and rollovers, which are often used for private and out-of-state universities. Maryland 529 began manually correcting accounts in January of this year. The manual correction occurs only for account holders who have requested a manual review. There were approximately 500 requests and 325 accounts that had been investigated as of February 9th. Maryland 529 does not have plans to manually verify each of the 3,941 accounts that received a tuition payment in the current academic year, but that those without a formal request will be updated once the automated system is corrected and verified afterwards. DLS is asking Maryland 529 to address the ongoing calculation issue and provide a status update on the manual review of accounts. The next issue covers the Maryland 529 Save for College program and can be found on page 25. Exhibit 14 on page 26 shows the total number of applications for fiscal years 2019 through 2023. The number of completed applications for fiscal 2023 decreased by 12,670 or 36.4% from fiscal 2022. The number of eligible applications fell by 26.8% in fiscal 2023, and ineligible applications decreased by 24.4% compared to the previous fiscal year. While the funding needed to ensure that all eligible applications received a state match increased from fiscal 2018 through 2021, as shown in Exhibit 15 on page 27, a total of $11 million will be needed in fiscal 2024 to ensure that all eligible applicants receive a matching contribution. A proposed fiscal 2023 deficiency of $3.6 million is included in the budget to remove funding that was not necessary to match contributions. Exhibit 16 on page 28 shows the state matching contributions provided by taxable income level from fiscal 2019 through 2023. Maryland 529 has advertising strategies designed to entice participation in the matching program with a focus on the lowest tax filing groups, as shown in the exhibit. Let me give you the right one. Exhibit 16 on page 28. 31% of total eligible applications in fiscal 2022 came from these tax bracket groupings: single filers with an income under $50,000 and joint filers with income under $75,000. Joint filers with an income of under $75,000 decreased by 56% in fiscal 2023 when compared to fiscal 2022. Exhibit 17 on page 29 shows the jurisdiction breakdown of applications received. As shown in the exhibit, applications from Baltimore City continue to represent the plurality of applications at 6,068, or 24% of total applications in fiscal 23. When combined, applications from Baltimore and Montgomery counties totaled just under 8,336 and represented a total. And when applications from Baltimore City are included in that total, these three jurisdictions alone encompass just under 2/3 of the total applications received for fiscal 2023. All jurisdictions, with the exception of Charles, Kent, Somerset, and Garrett counties, experienced decreases in applications in fiscal 2023. And DLS has asked Maryland 529 to address the continued decline in applications, particularly in targeted regions, despite the marketing efforts. And I will now turn it back to Sarah.
Okay, we have some recommendations that begin on page 30. The first two are annual requests for report, one on institutional aid and Pell Grants and loan data by EFC category, and a report on the progress towards the 55% completion goal. The third recommendation is on page 31 and requests a report on non-traditional pathways. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you so much for that comprehensive overview. Are there any questions from members? Delegate Forbes.
Thank you, Ms. Baker and Ms. Norton, for that comprehensive analysis. I just wanted to draw my colleagues' attention to Exhibit 13, which was provided by Maryland 529, where they show the statements growing large in 2021. And in previous years, Maryland 529 was only providing the amount of principal that an account holder had put into the account on the statements. So they were actually in violation of the federal statutes, where they were supposed to provide an end-of-year statement with a FAFSA value. The first time they provided a FAFSA value on the statement was 2021. And so it was the first time account holders were seeing it. And many of them called to check this with the new processing company Intuition, and where these statements were verified to them over the phone too. So I feel like this is a little misleading, in that people should have known when they got that 2021 statement that it wasn't accurate. But I think that we should be aware of those circumstances. Thanks. Thank you for that indulgence, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Forbes. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for our analysts. Appreciate you. I have Jeff Newman as well as Anthony Reiner.
Oh. I think Anthony Reiner's name is on there because he's the person who
Oh, I see what you're saying there.
posts the testimony.
Yeah,
But I am joined by Matt Power from President of MICU.
absolutely. Hello,
And Anthony
Mr.
Savia,
Powers.
Executive Director of Maryland 529.
Nice to see you again.
So, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the subcommittee. My name is Jeff Newman. I'm the Assistant Secretary of Finance and Administration at the Maryland Higher Education Commission, and I am currently representing the agency at these hearings. I'd like to thank Ms. Baker and Ms. Norton for their excellent analysis, as always. And I'd like to thank you for supporting the Maryland Higher Education Commission budgetarily year in and year out, and also the Sellinger program of funding to the nonprofit colleges and universities in the state. MHEC was requested to respond to one issue, and that is the current status of the financial aid system project. And we have been working with DoIT's Delivery Program Management Office, excuse me, to secure a senior project manager to run this run this project for us. And we will be presenting, actually the Department of Program Management Office from DOIT will be presenting to the Board of Public Works this Wednesday to procure this project manager, and we anticipate having the project manager on by around March 15th. In addition to the project manager, we've also requested a business analyst position for approval in our budget to help with project evaluation, improvement of business processes, gathering system requirements, and those types of issues. Finally, what we've done to prepare for the request for proposal for the project is to reach out to other states to see what, to inquire about how they develop their systems, what companies they may be working with, initial costs, annual maintenance costs, and customization. So we're trying to gather preliminary information before we move forward with the RFP, and we have been, excuse me, successful in getting information. There were 3 recommended actions for 3 reports from MHEC, and MHEC concurs with all actions. That concludes my testimony. I'd be happy to answer any questions or just hand it off to Mr. Power. Any questions? Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. It's good to see you and appreciate the work that you all are doing. And I see Dr. Dow is in the audience. Maybe this might be a better question for her. I'm just curious and appreciate all of the work that MHEC and the system have done on the transfer with success regulations, and was just curious for an update on how things are progressing. And I know there's been a lot of work going into it that's taking a little bit longer, I think, than we thought at the beginning. So I was just curious on how that's progressing.
And thank you for recognizing Emily. I should have done that. Emily Dow, our Assistant Secretary for Academic Affairs. We're also joined by Aubrey Bascom, our Director of Finance and Administration, and Lee Towers, our Executive Director of External Affairs.
Thank you. Happy to provide an update on the Transfer with Success Act implementation. So it has been quite the shift, I think, in higher education to for those of you not familiar with the bill, it requires institutions to essentially communicate with one another when there's a denial of credit. I think this has spurred quite the change with our community colleges actively working with our 4-year institutions. In terms of recent activity, we issued out guidance. So the regulations have been formally adopted. They're in effect. Creates a whole new process that aligns with the new statutory requirement. We issued out guidance in October. It's a pretty lengthy 30-page document that goes into fine detail around how this should all work. We asked the campuses to send us implementation plans at the beginning of January. We've reviewed them. Each campus is implementing slightly different depending on what their needs are, and we're staying in touch with them. I do want to highlight that University System of Maryland and the Maryland Association of Community Colleges have been excellent partners in this. But I think now is kind of a wait-and-see game to see the shifts happen. We have asked that campuses be well poised for the fall 2023 transfer. That should be their goal, that they are setting up their systems, getting everybody trained, figuring out their resources for fall 2023 transfer students. And I'm happy to answer more questions. So we're keeping an eye on it. I think we will have some additional regulatory changes just for clarifying purposes. And so we're kind of just keeping our finger on the pulse.
Great, thank you. And I know Chancellor Perman's in the back. I want to thank him and his leadership team for, I think the USM really, and our community colleges really came to the table, and I think it's been an incredible collaborative approach. So thank you to everybody for working on that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Thank you for your testimony today. Greatly appreciate it.
And thank you. I'd like to turn it over.
Mr.
Turn it over
Powers?
to Matt
Yep.
Power, President of MICUA.
Thank you, Jeff. Chair Smith, Vice Chair Solomon. I'm Matt Power, the President of the Maryland Independent College University Association. I'm primarily here just for questions. As a result of the analysis, I'd like to thank the DLS analysts for a great analysis. I'll also just note that the Selinger program turns 50 this year, which is a phenomenal commitment on behalf of the General Assembly. We're extremely thankful to the governor for fully funding Selinger this year, and we thank the General Assembly for your support throughout the years, helping to strengthen not only the independent sector, but the University System of Maryland and the community colleges. As a result, we have the best higher education institutions in the country, and we're very thankful for your support, and we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt, it's good to see you again. Just curious, because I know this has come up in a variety of different pieces of the higher ed sector. How is your association and your individual campuses starting to look at the enrollment decline and the enrollment concerns?
Sure. So as you know, higher ed is in flux in many different ways, and we are sort of a residential-based four-year institutions predominantly. And so COVID hit us a little bit harder than I think some of the other sectors. But all of our institutions are working hard to both on strategic planning as well as new academic programs that you'll see coming through to try and increase enrollment and make sure that we are able to attain the amount of degrees that we're trying to produce for the state of Maryland.
Great, and don't mean to put you on the spot. You obviously don't speak for every individual institution, but looking forward to that conversation with some of the MICUA presidents that are coming in. Thank
Definitely.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions for Mr. Powers and MICUA? Seeing none, thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce Anthony Savia, the Executive Director of Maryland 529.
Good afternoon.
afternoon.
I am Anthony Savia, the Executive Director for Maryland 529. It is my pleasure to provide these responses to the questions raised by the legislative analyst. Since our inception in 1998 with the launch of the Maryland Prepaid College Trust, our goal has been to help make college more affordable for Maryland families. We have made many significant strides toward that goal through our two college savings programs, the Maryland College Investment Plan and the Maryland College Trust. In 2017, we added a disability savings program, Maryland ABLE, which allows individuals with disabilities to save money and pay for qualified disability-related expenses without jeopardizing state or federal means-tested benefits such as Social Security or Medicaid. At present, we have over $9 billion in assets under management across all three programs. I recognize this has been a challenging year for Maryland 529. The earnings calculation issue with the Prepaid College Trust has caused great concern with account holders and Maryland residents. Since assuming the position of Executive Director just 5 months ago, it has been my goal to be as transparent as possible to the account holders while working to resolve this issue. We have made great progress, and I renew my commitment to ensure we meet our fiduciary obligation to both the account holders and the state of Maryland. First question, Maryland 529 should address the ongoing calculation issue and provide a status update on the manual review process. As of February 23, 2023, the calculation of attributable earnings from the overall Maryland Prepaid College Trust on prepaid accounts is now fixed. Maryland 529 has provided the corrected calculation of earnings to approximately 431 out of the 678 requests received. Approximately 80 of the remaining 247 outstanding have data anomalies that must be researched. The remaining 167 were received in the past couple of weeks are in the queue for data pool and calculation. Maryland 529 continues to pay tuition and mandatory fees to any and all account holders. Maryland 529 is also working with the program manager who is in the process of having the corrected calculation programmed into the automated system for the Prepaid College Trust so that we may return to regular business operations in the near future. Once the programming is complete, beta testing has to be performed. An independent auditor will then review to verify the accuracy of the calculation. The agency continues to communicate with account holders directly as well as posting information and updating our FAQ page on our website. The board intends to provide a written update to account holders on a monthly basis until we are fully automated. This is in addition to our other methods of communication. Second question, Maryland 529 should address the continuing decline to applications, particularly targeted regions, despite the marketing efforts. The Safer College State Contribution Program, or SCP, continues to be successful. For the class of 2022, the program ended with a 26% decrease in applications compared to last year, particularly due to new legislative guardrails, as well as a 13% decrease in the total number of applicants or beneficiaries. When reviewing or viewing this past year's program results, it should be with the approach that it's more of a new program due to the legislative changes over the last 2 years, which were implemented to reduce or eliminate abuse of the program. The majority of qualified applications received in 2022 continued to be from the targeted lower or middle income ranges, and these applicants received 80% of the total state contribution, or 5.8 of the 7.3 awarded. The largest percentage of the final qualified applicants residing in Maryland continue to be from Baltimore City, followed by Montgomery and Baltimore counties. Takeaways for the upcoming year or the current year for 2023. We launched new tactics in December 2022 to increase awareness of the SCP opening on January 1, to include geo-targeted programmatic ads and Facebook Ready, Set, Go pre-launch campaign with messaging around open your MCIP account now to be ready to apply. We are pleased with the initial results. Applications are up 18% over this time last year, compared to last year. We are continuing to utilize Facebook, programmatic, smart devices, video, and streaming audio as the key digital channels. Reinvesting in streaming audio ads, expanding the use of geo-targeted programmatic ads to complement the out-of-the-home or billboards and other methods, and partnership campaigns, and expanding in-flight runs of TV and radio. With the widespread distribution and extensive impressions, continue a traditional media mix of TV, radio, and outdoor transit advertising to aid in higher recall and motivate target audiences to apply. We are increasing PR efforts to promote the SCP as an investment tool for low-income families via earned and paid media opportunities, as well as bloggers and influencers. We will be participating in the cash campaign of Maryland's Money Power Day, a largely attended financial education festival in March that has finally resumed in person after 3 years. This draws thousands of attendees, primarily from Baltimore City and surrounding counties, offering financial workshops, activities for children, and live entertainment. In addition, we are meeting with Prince George's County Public Schools in March to discuss a new partnership opportunity where the school system may be able to provide seed funding for eligible state contribution program applicants. We believe this partnership will help increase participation in Prince George's County, and this potentially could be a model for other counties as well. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the members? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes all testimony for that budget hearing and closes the budget hearing for Maryland Higher Education Commission. Next, the Maryland State Library Agency, first with Budget Analyst Laura Hyde.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Again, my name is Laura Hyde, and I'm the budget analyst for the Maryland State Library Agency. Starting on page 1 with the operating budget summary, the MSLA's fiscal 2024 budget increases by $2.6 million, or 2.7%, to almost $100 million. This increase is primarily attributable to mandated increases in library formula funding, which I will discuss shortly. Turning to page 2, Exhibit 1, this is the overview of agency spending. MSLA's allowance in the fiscal 2024 budget includes $51 million for public library aid, which is slightly more than half their budget. Retirement aid receives $22 million, or 22% of the budget. The state library network receives a similar amount, $21 million, or 21% of the budget. And then MSLA's administrative allowance of approximately $5 million makes up the remainder of this allowance. Looking on page 3, Exhibit 2, this is the proposed budget. This exhibit shows the changes in MSLA's budget from fiscal 23 to 24. These increases are primarily for formula funding, which total approximately $2.2 million. These increases are slightly offset by a net change in operating expenses for and the completion of a project to install new software for the library for the blind and print disabled. If you would please turn to page 4, under personnel. In fiscal 2024, MSLA has an allowance of 32 positions, which is one more position than in fiscal 2023. And even though this chart shows 2 vacant positions, MSLA reports that 1 position has been filled. MSLA's new position is for a communications manager, which the agency hopes to fill by October 2023. Turning to page 6, Under key observations, MSLA's recent audit found that the agency didn't have a memorandum of understanding with the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled. However, both entities have since executed the MOU, so GLS suggested that MSLA comment on how the MOU responds to the concerns identified in the audit. Moving to page 7, Exhibit 3. This graph shows that in fiscal 2021 and 2022, library attendance decreased as a result of library closures during the pandemic. But MSLA reports that because the reporting for this measure is delayed, it doesn't reflect increases in attendance later in calendar 2021 and calendar 2022. So due to this reporting delay, DLS suggests that MSLA comment on this measure. Turning to page 8, this is Exhibit 4. This graph shows that from fiscal 2021 to 2022, the total number of digital materials in Maryland libraries decreased slightly, and the number of digital materials accessed increased by 1.5 million items. Both acquisition and access to digital materials is expected to increase in future years as changes in the publishing industry favor digital materials. And then moving to page 9, Exhibit 5. From fiscal 2021 to 22, the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled materials accessed and patrons served increased. The library reports that with the move to the new customized borrowing system that I mentioned previously, the software that they've put in, it expects significant growth in the number of materials accessed by patrons in fiscal 2023 and 2024. The Maryland State Library Agency doesn't have any recommended action, so DLS recommends concurring with the governor's allowance. This concludes my presentation, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hyde, for that presentation, comprehensive as always. Are there any questions from the members? Thank you so much. At this time, I request that Irene Padilla. Hello, great to see you.
Great to see you.
And if you would like to invite any team members, they can come as well.
Okay, come on up.
Good afternoon to you all as well.
Good afternoon. Well, good afternoon to you too. We are here today to talk about our operating budget for FY24. I am Irene Padilla, the Maryland State Librarian. I'm joined by Tamar Sarnoff, Director of Public Libraries and State Networking, John Owen, Director of the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled, and Donna Liberto, our Chief Financial Officer. It's such a pleasure to be here today, and really thank you in person for your support of libraries.
It's nice to see
terrific.
you. You did have a beautiful bookcase behind you. Yeah, we do miss
right.
that. It was
Oh,
very,
yeah.
10 for 10 background. But
That's right.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Yes, exactly. We need your builder, your build-in builder.
Really?
Continue.
Yeah, I'll get with you on that.
Exactly.
You did a great job. Okay, well, I wanted to start by thanking Laura Hyde for her really diligent analysis of our budget. Laura doesn't just analyze it at this point, but she works with us all year and always has lots of questions, which we're happy to answer. So she comes into the whole thing very well prepared. Thank you, Laura. You have a written testimony, so I won't reiterate all of our accomplishments after being established almost 6 years ago. But I did want to remind you of something I mentioned last year, which has really progressed quite a bit in the last year, and that is what we were able to do with the $3 million in the American Rescue Plan Act funding. We were able to provide enhancements to programming, services, and collections throughout the state. Every public library system who requested funding received something, and I threw the whole thing open and I said, ask for what you need, even though I knew we had $3 million, and they asked for over $10 million worth of needs. So I was pleased to see that they're really thinking about what would help their customers. The ARPA funding helped address one of the biggest issues Maryland libraries face and many agencies face, which is digital equity. Prior to the pandemic, many residents relied on the library for access to computers and the internet. And according to a 2021 ABLE Foundation report, 23% of Maryland households do not subscribe to broadband service, 18% of Maryland households do not have a computer, and more than 100,000 households with children do not have access to the broadband. And while I'd like to think that in the last 2 years that has changed a lot, I am not confident of that. So what we were able to do primarily with the money was provide funding for 14 mobile units to improve access to the internet in rural and underserved areas that are most in need of the service. So we were able to provide these so that they can visit Boys and Girls Clubs, daycare centers, senior living centers, and the homebound, as well as rural communities that lack both reliable broadband, internet, and public transportation. Because in addition to providing internet access, these vehicles provide access to print materials, special collections, mobile classes, and free health, employment, and legal services. So 7 counties ended up with new mobile units. The others were able to upgrade what they have. And overall, this is really great, I think a great statistic. Mobile units are distributed across counties representing 82% of Maryland residents, an increase of 145%, which we don't often get to say, but that's great. The funding also included infrastructure projects and efforts to increase broadband access through the library buildings, but that only goes so far. They can only do so much, and it really doesn't serve the whole community. So moving on from that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled. Most of their programs and events are held virtually, and in FY22, LBPD, as we refer to them, provided 144 virtual programs and events attended by 813 patrons, caregivers, stakeholders, and potential patrons. This included an innovative and collaborative programs such as the introduction of podcasts, including blog posts and full-length topical programming, and featured accessible astronomy activities for youth around the NASA Webb Space Telescope launch. And we were proud to report that the ARPA funding helped address one of the biggest issues of Maryland's libraries in terms of helping with the issue of diversity and inclusion. And we've been able to not only work with our staff across the state, but also with our customers on this issue, which I think is an ongoing issue that we need to address. We have over 3.2 million registered borrowers. 54% of Marylanders hold library cards. We're always looking to increase that. Now that we're open again, we can do that. Over 46 million items were borrowed, and over 3 million questions were answered. In-person visits to the library buildings topped 4 million, which is really terrific considering where we were at last time this year. And over 600,000 customers attended library programs. Public libraries continue to provide more than 4,400 computers for public access, as well as free Wi-Fi at all branches and in communities. And wireless internet uses increased to a record 7.8 million. The use of e-resources increased dramatically. Circulation of e-books increased by 22% as customers continued to seek contactless ways to stay engaged and informed. Libraries increased e-material expenditures by an additional 4%, which didn't really show up in the graph, but we are told that this is an issue that is a little more difficult to keep track of, and we were going to monitor that more closely this coming year. But there is our wish to provide more digital materials is held by the fact that the publishers aren't as anxious to work with us on cost and availability of titles. So we answered more than 3 million questions, and we are on track to continue to improve our services this coming year, and we are, again, very grateful for your support. And in closing, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any questions from the members? Seeing none, I just want to thank you for the work of our libraries. It's one of the few places in public life where anyone, from a person experiencing homelessness, people of all ages and backgrounds, are welcome to participate in the services that are being provided there. And we do know, coming through COVID, that our schools and libraries have been really at ground zero of helping many residents across Maryland make it through some of the most challenging times in their lives. So just thank you for the work that you do, and it's a pleasure to hear some of the updates you've provided today.
Well, thank you, Chairperson Smith.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
And that concludes, I don't believe I have any other witnesses. That concludes the budget hearing for the Maryland State Library Agency. Next up, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. And we'll begin with Kelly Norton's analysis.
Okay, we're going to start on page 4. Exhibit 1 shows total undergraduate enrollment and category changes from fall 2017 through 2022. Total undergraduate enrollment increased by 123 students from fall 2021 through 2022. As is illustrated in the exhibit, first-time, full-time students experienced an increase of 30.5% in fall 2022 after years of decline. Exhibit 2 on page 5 documents the changes in undergraduate applications. As shown in the exhibit, the number of applications decreased in fall 2022 by 19.8% to approximately 6,300. The yield rate, or the number of students who actually enrolled from that total, increased to 11% in fall 2022 compared to the previous fall. The acceptance rate of 86% was also the highest rate recorded over this period. Moving to student performance, Exhibit 3 on page 6 provides the second and third year retention rates for full-time, first-time students. The second year retention rate had fallen with the 2020 cohort, but rebounded in the 2021 cohort to 70.9%. The third year retention rate had its largest decrease since the 2016 cohort, falling 4.6 percentage points in the 2020 cohort compared to the previous year. Exhibit 4 on page 7 provides the 4- and 6-year graduation rates for first-time, full-time students. As is shown in the exhibit, the 4-year graduation rate has remained below 20% since the 2015 cohort, and the 6-year graduation rate increased to 36% for the 2016 cohort. The President should discuss UMES's strategies to improve graduation rates. Exhibit 5 on page 8 provides the 8-year graduation rate by Pell and non-Pell recipient status. Both non-Pell and Pell recipient students, whether full-time or part-time, were more likely to graduate within 8 years at UMES than another university. Exhibit 6 on page 9 shows the estimated cost of attendance versus the average net price for full-time in-state students by income level between fiscal 2019 through 2021. The exhibit shows that the average cost of attendance over these years was $24,543. However, the actual net price for students when aid was awarded averaged $14,922. In fiscal 2021, the average net price was $11,826 less than the cost of attendance. This exhibit also shows that the cost of attendance will vary depending on income level. For example, in fiscal 2021, it cost a student $8,095 with a family income of under $30,000, but $19,472 for a student with a family income of over $110,000. Exhibit 7 on page 10 shows the amount of institutional aid awarded and total dollar amount of awards provided by category. The total number of institutional awards increased 58.6% between fiscal 2016 through fiscal 2021. The need-based aid accounted for 66.1% of institutional aid in fiscal 2021. The United States Department of Education began reporting the median debt for graduates by field of study in an effort to give students a better picture of outcomes at the program level. Exhibit 8 on page 11 illustrates that the median debt of students ranged from just over $18,000 for engineering majors to $30,000 for rehabilitation and therapeutic majors, and computer and information science majors had the highest median earnings at $58,000. Moving to the budget, Exhibit 9 on page 13 provides the budget changes for unrestricted funds by program from fiscal 2022 to 2023. The largest dollar change was in instruction, which increased by $7.4 million, and spending on institutional support also increased, growing by $1.5 million. Moving to the federal stimulus funds, Exhibit 10 on page 14 provides an overall summary of the total funds that were allocated to UMES through the various Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund, or HERF, stimulus programs. In total, UMES received over $53 million in federal stimulus funds, of which $8.4 million was required to go directly to students in the form of emergency financial aid. Exhibit 11 on page 15 provides the overall distribution of allocated in-plan HERF spending by UMES from fiscal 2020 through 2023. The university has until June 30th to expend $24.4 million in ARPA funds, and the president should address how the ARPA funds will be expended in this fiscal year. The proposed fiscal 2024 budget found in Exhibit 12 on page 16 includes a general fund increase of $3.5 million, $2.8 million in cost of living and merit increases, and $9 million in Chapter 41 of 2021 funds, or HBCU settlement funds. In total, when excluding the state fund allocation, there is an increase of $3.1 million. The president should comment on how UMES plans to use the remaining additional $3.1 million of state funding, excluding the cost of living increases in the HBCU settlement funds. Exhibit 13 on page 18 provides a breakdown of unrestricted revenues by source and total unrestricted funds. The ratio for these levels remains roughly stable from fiscal 2018 through 2020. In fiscal 2024, state funds account for 55% of unrestricted funds. UMES anticipates total unrestricted funds to grow to $117 million in the 2024 allowance. The personnel data for the university is found on page 19, which identifies that as of December 31st, 2022, the university had over 85.86 positions vacant above the expected turnover amount, which can be attributed to the creation of 63 new positions in fiscal 2023. Moving to issues, which begin on page 20 and covers the most recent Office of Legislative Audit's fiscal compliance report. There were 3 repeat findings. Finding 1 addresses this finding that UMS did not adequately monitor its food service vendor to ensure that required facility upgrades, investments, and commissions were received. The second finding stated that UMES had not established sufficient controls over student residency determinations and subsequent changes in certain non-cash credits recorded in student accounts. And the final finding, UMES did not adequately control and account for mail collections and did not ensure that electronic collections were properly deposited into the state's bank account. DLS is asking the president of UMS to comment on what actions have been taken to address the findings of the December 2020 audit report, and also specifically comment on what actions have been taken in regard with the audit's repeat findings and repeat recommendations. While not a repeat finding, OLA addressed the previous audit's issue of the ongoing Maryland Hawk Corporation and Hawk Plaza student housing complex situation. OLA determined that UMES should seek reimbursement of federal grant money from the foundation that was dispersed inconsistently with applicable federal regulations. OLA noted that due to the foundation's financial situation, it was unable to determine if it had the ability to repay any of the funds. The president should address the status of Hawk Plaza and the return of funding from the foundation. The DLS operating budget recommended action is found on page 22, and it states to see the USM overview of system-wide recommendations, which was to concur with the budget, the governor's allowance. With that, I conclude my presentation.
Thank you so much, Ms. Newton, for your overview. Are there any questions from the members? Seeing none, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We now are looking forward to President Anderson and her team coming forward. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair and Mr. Vice Chair and all of the members of the subcommittee. And thank you very much for having us here. Before I begin, let me first of all thank Ms. Kelly Norton for her analysis and also her help before we even get here, and for that thorough review of our particular institution. All of you should have already received a copy of our testimony, which also gives you an update about our accomplishments and other activities at our institution. So I will not take up any of your time to repeat any of that unless you have questions about it. But before I move into responding to the analyst questions, let me just also say thank you very much to this body, which was part of the larger body over the last few years that gave us the settlement, the HBCU settlement funds. Those are very, very greatly appreciated. I know by myself, our institution, as well as the other 3 HBCUs, and we are utilizing those funds appropriately according to the statute, and thank you, appreciate that help. And then, as I said in my statement earlier, thank you to former Governor Hogan and also the former General Assembly and for all of the support that has been given to UMES throughout the years, and of course for current Governor Moore and his direction. So I would like to introduce my new Vice President of Administration and Finance, Ms. Anastasia Rodriguez. And then, of course, I have my Government Affairs, Jim Mathias, in the back, as well as the first gentleman, my husband, Leon Roberts. So moving to the questions directly. First of all, the President should discuss the strategies to improve graduation rates. As you know, graduation rates nationwide at HBCUs averages about 35%. What we have been doing at UMES is, of course, trying to move the needle on that and move it even higher. And so I have to say I'm very pleased that the team of individuals that we have put together, that we have been putting a number of strategies in place to make sure we do just that. Not only increase our graduation rate, but also our retention rate, which you heard. 4 items of interest that I put in my report for you that I wanted to report. One is supplemental math instruction. If you're familiar with the research in this area, you know that students today come to us and they are deficient in reading and math. And that is something that was pre-COVID a problem, and it has even worsened since COVID. What we have decided to do is put in place what's called supplemental instruction, which really means that students will have a tutor, and it's kind of like having, I like to think of it as like a little buddy sitting right next to them in the classroom to help them get through the instruction. And it will assist them on a very personalized way, and we've seen the research on this, and it works. A second strategy that we have put in place is our summer bridge. This is not a new strategy for us, but it has a new twist. Let me explain. Summer Bridge is for students who really cannot meet the first level of criteria that it takes to be admitted to our university. So that means they may be deficient in some areas. And what we have allowed over the past is to have those students come into a summer 4 to 8 week program and give them some strengthening tools in areas that they need strengthening. It may be reading, math, both of those, study skills, those type of things. What we did since my tenure is I've asked our team to let's enhance that. In the past, that would be 20 to 25 students. Last year, post-COVID, we went ahead and quadrupled that number. So we had 100 students who come in this summer for Summer Bridge, and over 98% of those students enroll in the fall, and they persist throughout their 4 years. This summer of 2023, we're going to double even that number. So last summer we went to 100. This summer we're going to go to 200. And we're doing that because we recognize COVID, as I said, has really hindered where students are at. And we not only meet our students where they're at, but we try to get them over the finish line. A third strategy that we put in place that you saw in my testimony is what we call FOCUS, which stands for Future Outstanding Cohort University Students. And this is another area where we're looking at those students who have lower GPAs. One of the things I am proud to say as being president there of UMES is we take students where they're at and we try to move them to the finish line, and we're proud of that because we really do transform lives, and we send them out the door to really ready to make a difference, not just in the state of Maryland, but in the world. We're able to do that with programs like this, where we have this kind of partnership of student success and academic affairs working together. And then the last strategy that I pointed to you in my testimony happens to do with our Hawks Mentor Program. And this is where our first-year students are assigned a mentor. And I'm so proud of this one because this is not just a peer mentor, but we now also assign them a staff or a faculty member mentor. And as I was just telling my boss last week, I'm having office hours with students now, and I'm hearing a lot from them that this is a very helpful strategy for them. I will go through all of them and then see if you have any questions. Madam Chair, is that okay? The second area, the President should discuss the reason for the increased expenditures in instruction and institutional support. Those increases in our instructional support is because we act with the HBCU funding, which is why I thanked you early for that. We have been able to identify 10 new academic programs. 4 of them, we actually went into a new modality, which is adding an online modality. 6 of them are brand new programs that will be both an online and a hybrid as well as a face-to-face. and I had a list of those in my materials for you to see, so I won't belabor it here. But that is the reason behind that use of institutional, funding going up. We wanted to make sure we put in the right tools, the right techniques, the right strategies that are used for those new programs, and so we saw that increase there. Next, the President should address how the ARPA funds will be expended. We all really was very grateful, all universities, for what we got through HERF funds, through ARP funds, through all of the funds from the federal government. The only thing we weren't grateful for is they put a time clock on how much you had to spend that, and we understand. And so what we're doing with the rest of our funds, which just takes us a little time, is three things. One, we're making sure we handle funding for our students, financial support for our students. We have the students who have come to us with modest means. We have students who are in dire need. Even though our Pell numbers show roughly 50 to 60%, over 98% of our students have some type of financial need. So we're going to use funds there to help them. The second way we're going to use funds is our infrastructure and our technology been in dire need for a number of years, and so we're going to make sure we take care of that in a way that sustains us through hopefully the next century. It'll be well beyond us being there. And then the third way is health and safety, and making sure we take care of any other health safety issues that are lingering on our campus. On the Eastern Shore, a lot of health things because of mold and those kind of things that happen in that part of the state. We want to make sure we handle that. The President should comment on how UMES plans to spend the remaining additional $3.1 million of state funding. The $3.1 million of state funding is allocated to make sure we have for fringe benefits and also statewide adjustments, and this was a summary that DBM had provided to us earlier. And so, as you know, these are mandatory costs that impact health insurance and benefits, and so we're going to use that $3.1 million in that regard. And then lastly, there were several audit findings, and I have to say these were one of the areas that we were most taken aback by, most embarrassed by, and we have now fixed those. We had several findings in December of 2022, and we have, first of all, I'll tell you the good news, which is all of the repeat findings have been fixed to this date. And the second part of how we're handling that is we went ahead and we hired a new compliance auditor. We hired this person, Dr. Elliott, in January of 2023, and we have put in a whole new process and practice and strategy to make sure that we don't have to come before you and say, I'm sorry that we made a repeat finding anymore in the future. We're going to take care of it. And then the third way is my new vice president was chosen from a nationwide search. And one of the things I looked at was someone who could really come and help and have nightmares with me about audit and nightmares about fiscal, but more importantly, her background is stellar in this area. 15 years of being an auditor herself, and she has brought in just 140 days now, some major interesting best practices that we have not had. And so that's going to help us in this area. And as I said, all of the repeat findings have already been fixed, so I know it's going to work. The final thing the analysts asked us to comment on was the status of the Hawk Plaza and the return of funding from the foundation. Hawk Plaza was sold in December of 2022. And as you know, I arrived in September of 2018. And what I can tell between my review with my team is that all of the funding has been addressed by the previous senior leadership. So we can't tell you any more than that. Everything appears to be in order and taken care of, and the Hawks Plaza is now sold. Those are our responses. I'll be happy to answer any questions or take any other, respond to anything else at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and also thank you for the seriousness by which you're taking the audit findings. I know they're very stressful, but it looks like you have a comrade and nightmares and stress ahead that hopefully everything will be resolved in an orderly fashion. Are there any questions from the members for President Anderson today? Hearing none, thank you so much for your testimony, and also welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. There are no other witnesses signed up for this one, so that will conclude the UMES budget hearing. And we'll be moving to our final budget hearing for today, which is Canal Place Preservation and Development Authority. And we'll begin with Budget Analyst Carrie Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Carrie Cook with the Department of Legislative Services, presenting the budget analysis for the Canal Place Preservation and Development Authority. So this authority administers the passages of the Western Potomac Heritage Area. This is the first heritage area in the state. It is also the only heritage area that is its own state agency, as it was created by statute. The rest are housed in the Maryland Historical Trust. And it is also the smallest heritage area up in Allegheny County around Cumberland. So on the bottom of page 1 here, you can see the operating budget summary. In fiscal 2024, their budget increases just over $87,000 or 12.7% to $776,000. And then on the next page, page 2, there is a proposed fiscal 2023 general fund deficiency to supplement the agency's janitorial and maintenance contract. Exhibit 1 on the bottom of page 2 shows the overview of fiscal 2024 spending. 77% of their budget is used for personnel expenses and general preservation and operating expenses for their facilities. And then moving on to the proposed budget change for fiscal 2024 on page 3. As you can see here in Exhibit 2, their personnel expenses increased by a net $30,000, increased costs for health insurance and increments, as the members have seen in other agencies as well. And the big change here is the addition of one new contractual full-time equivalent position, which I will cover in more detail in just a moment, as well as $35,000 for fiber optic installation. So this is really just kind of catching up Canal Place to some other state agencies with what they have now. They currently can't connect to many of the state systems, which is causing some additional logistical challenges for them. So this installation will help them to sort of access all of the state systems that will be able to help them out. Moving on to personnel on page 4, as I mentioned just a moment ago, there is the addition of one contractual full-time equivalent position, which brings their total personnel up to 4. They have no vacancies, which is great. And this new contractual position was recommended by their annual auditors, and so they hope that this person can assist with financial controls, with auditing and reporting requirements, which is a lot for such an extremely small agency. And they also hope that this person can help them out with grant writing. So there's going to be a lot of grants that they are applying for, have received, especially with their River Park project as that continues to develop. And just a few issues here that I wanted to highlight, starting on page 5. Given the very small size of the agency and how the rest of the heritage areas are folded into MHT with the Department of Planning, the future of Canal Place has been studied several times in recent years. There's some more details, the chapter numbers in the write-up. But basically, there was not really any conclusion. Reports that were required were never completed. There was a site visit, but there was never really a final resolution. So given that this did not really resolve, Canal Place has instead pursued a recommendation to merge into DNR, either as a state park or a partnership park, which is a new opportunity provided by the Great Maryland Outdoors Act from last year. So upon further discussion with DNR, it was determined that, unfortunately, the Great Maryland Outdoors Act does not permit existing state agencies to become a partnership park. So in order for them to pursue that path, there would have to be some sort of legislation to create an exception for them. So Canal Place should discuss the possibility of becoming a partnership park or merging with DNR outside of that program, including how inclusion in DNR's organization would help or hinder their ability to achieve their short and long-term goals. I also wanted to cover some new Open Meetings Act requirements. This is on the bottom of page 5. So there was a bill last year that removed exemptions for various small state agencies and organizations. from the Open Meetings Act requirements. So now Canal Place, among many other agencies, are subject to these requirements. So this includes things like posting meeting agendas in advance of the meetings, posting the minutes afterwards, and live streaming meetings. So Canal Place is doing their best. They post public Zoom links for their meetings. They post agendas in their office building, but they are facing some logistical constraints from adhering with all of these requirements. So their website in particular does not have the storage capability for them to have one page where all of their minutes are stored. So they instead have to post them as blog posts, kind of, and so it makes it very difficult to navigate if one wants to find the records. They also have constraints that prevent them from live streaming their meetings. They just do not have that technological capability. They're also in Cumberland, so there's some broadband issues there as well. So they just, they don't have the capability to come into compliance with all these requirements. They're doing the best they can. And you can see here that the cost to upgrade their website to become in compliance would be a significant impact on their small budget. So the agency should discuss the logistical challenges imposed by the new Open Meetings Act requirements and how making the necessary investments to achieve full compliance may impact their long-term finances. I also just wanted to very briefly touch on the updates here, which is on page 8. Office of Legislative Audit's finding in 2021 showed that Canal Place was a few years behind on their audits. As I mentioned, they have so few personnel, it makes it difficult to keep up with all these logistical requirements. So they did enter into a contract with a vendor. The agency has submitted everything that is required of them. There have been some unforeseen delays with the contractor, but they are working to get that resolved. And then finally, the River Park project at Canal Place. The agency has been very aggressive in applying for funding for this project. They have secured $6 million in a federal earmark, and that's going to be administered through SHA's Transportation Alternative Program, and that's going to support the building of a trail system as well as interpretive signage. They've also secured funding from Allegheny County and the City of Cumberland, and a tourism grant from the Federal Economic Development Administration, which will come through the Maryland Department of Commerce. That's going to support an engineering and design study, which will provide them cost estimates components of the project as they move towards both expanding the boundaries of the heritage area as well as adding additional recreational opportunities for their visitors. And in terms of the recommended actions, DLS recommends concurring with the governor's proposed budget for their operating. And that concludes my formal presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for your overview. Very well done. Are there any questions from the members? Seeing none, thank you so much for your analysis. Next, we'd like to welcome up Deidre Ritchie and team. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having us. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. My name is Rebecca Rupert, and I'm the volunteer vice chair at Canal Place Preservation and Development Authority. And with me today is the executive director of the authority, Deirdre Ritchie, who will be giving the budget testimony. First, let me say thank you for having us here today. It's a privilege to appear before you, and we'd like to thank Carrie Cook of the Department of Legislative Services for her assistance in guiding us through this year's budget analysis. We thank you for your time and consideration of Canal Place Preservation and Development Authority fiscal year 24 budget.
Hi, thank you. My name's Deidre Ritchie. As Becky said, I'm the executive director. I was asked to comment on a couple things as a result of the budget analysis. The first thing I want to just talk about again, because you do have our testimony, is alternatives of really maintenance funding for the Canal Place Preservation and Development Authority and the 11-acre facility that we're housed in. My staff and some board members and myself, we all reviewed the Maryland Outdoors Act, and we looked at the possibility of becoming part of DNR, and we submitted that request last year, and some of our local legislators didn't like that idea, so we looked at maybe becoming a partnership park, but as Carrie said, because we're a state agency, we would have to be, it would have to be amended legislation or something else, so. But we did think we would qualify for that because we are situated in the heart of downtown city of Cumberland. We're an urban park. We have huge heritage and historical component. In fact, we're in the process of doing a great boundary expansion within Allegheny County. So it's really going to pick up a lot of our untold heritage and history. So we're very excited about that. Also located at Canal Place that would I guess make us part of a partnership park would be, we have the great Allegheny Passage, mile marker 0 right there at Canal Place, brings in hundreds of thousands of tourists every year. We're at mile marker 184.5 of the C&O Canal Towpath. The National Historic Road is located just right across Wills Creek from where our office building is. So there's a lot of components and a lot of things that would fit in. We have the opportunity just south of Canal Place to pick up a 40-acre waterfront park, which DNR is looking forward to purchasing things like that. So there's a lot of opportunities in picking up the maintenance and helping us with acquiring that and taking care of it, and just everything else we do, especially with the river park, that would help us. The next thing I was asked to comment about was the Open Meeting Act requirement. Again, as Carrie said, we have always opened our meetings to the public. We just do not have the capability or the personnel to house all the data that's required for the Open Meetings Act, minutes and just everything. So we have to hire a third-party contractor to take care of our IT because there's only 3 of us that runs an entire state agency. So we take care of HR, budget, IT, retirement. I mean, you name it, we take care of it. So it's going to cost that $12,000 for a person to come in and take care of our website and to run all that for us. So we're looking to do that. We are in the process of installing fiber optic. We are so behind. I think we're the only state agency in the city of Cumberland that does not have that. So we're looking to have that installed hopefully in the next couple months. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing. Like you said, you might be tiny but mighty.
Yeah.
And, I was just looking at some of the pictures. It looks very lovely. So hopefully I'll get an opportunity to visit at a better time of the year for me. But Delegate Mangione.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll be honest, I really did not know much about this at all, but it sounds like, and I'm reading a little bit, fascinating history right in Maryland. I guess, you kind of touched on it, but it sounds like I guess I'm kind of learning this now. What do you think we can do to best preserve what you're doing and to keep the, I guess you could say, the future to look strong for Canal Place? And is it that legislation? Do we have to come up with something? You said something about the local, I guess, elected officials are against joining with DNR, but the part about writing an additional bill or amendment, are they not against that? Or what can we do? Thank you.
Well, I mean, again, when that task force study was created, it was created to, I really think, to disband the operation because I'm not sure why. I guess they didn't want to see Canal Place in the state budget. But now there's been no movement. I mean, and we've been asked to come up with ideas of how to better fund Canal Place. Newt, like a 0.0006% of the entire state budget. So in order to help us, I mean, I guess it's the maintenance, the funding part that we're looking for help for. So, I mean, our only options are, we are going to hire a grants writer to help try to find additional grants. But as you know, it is like limited to find operations money anywhere. So the only other thing I could think of was you certainly don't want to destroy Canal Place. We're the driving force.
You said hundreds of thousands of tourists are coming.
Yes,
which I would have to imagine is #1 driver in a rural area like Cumberland.
And this river park is going to bring in $300,000. We've done research, 300,000 people annually at least. They're going to come in to visit our public lands, to do the trail, to do the Gap Trail, C&O Canal. The Western Maryland Scenic Railroad is right out of our building. So we need funding either from general fund or from partnership parks. I mean, I don't know where else to look for it. I've been with the state for 40 years, and I'm racking my brain trying to figure out what else to do. But
Well, I guess if Madam Chair, I can ask one brief question is, and obviously you can't speak for the elected officials there, but I would assume if under DNR, then a lot of this issue would be taken care of, or and if that is the case, then why would they be against? I guess obviously local control of things are nice, but not if you can't afford to do so.
well,
So,
they
or am I misunderstanding? Thank you.
No,
Thank you,
no,
Madam Chair.
you're not, and it makes, again, I worked for Department of Natural Resources for 22 years. I worked for Program Open Space and then the Waterway Improvement Program. The one legislator didn't like the idea of the state of Maryland having so much control over property in the city of Cumberland. That was the big, the big thing. So I don't know. I mean, we're doing so many things on our property. Our festival grounds, they said use them more. They're completely filled up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, all through summer. We have, all our spaces, we have tenants, shops at Canal Place, they're completely full. We have the Fairfield Inn that sits on our property. We do generate income from there, but just not enough. Everything has gone up maintenance-wise. So that's where we run into trouble. Department of General Services, when I first got there, didn't even know we existed, didn't even know there were state buildings at Canal Place. So they're finally taking over our capital maintenance, but it's still, just that little bit more general fund money that we need. We initiated this river park because of the economic impact. I mean, it's not only going to bring tourists in and help businesses be created, but everybody's going to be able to use it. Everybody. It'll be free of charge. It's not only the river usage, it's improving the water quality of the river. We're removing a dam, so there'll be fish passage, and that water and the sediment will be cleaned up. So it's multifaceted as far as what it's going to do for the city of Cumberland and Allegheny County. And that project isn't going to be the maintenance burden, really. So it's just everything else that continues to escalate, and we never really received the funds to take care of it. I mean, we try, and you can look at our audits. We don't. We're very, very fiscally conservative, but it's just trying to find that additional money. I mean, I looked for Department of Planning to take us because they had Jefferson Patterson Park. They don't want us. They don't want us either. And we met with the city of Cumberland and Allegheny County. We meet frequently. They want things to stay the way they are. So I'm out of options. I don't know what else to do.
Ms. Ritchie, just to make sure we're clear, this is already state-owned property.
Correct.
So a concern about more state control of something it already controls is kind of a moot point, correct?
I would think so, yes.
Okay, so I just was trying to, because I'll be honest, I'm learning about this property, along with you. We're both, kind of newer to the committee. So, I'm saying, don't feel out of sorts, delegate, because I think we're all here learning, together. So any way we can be helpful, even maybe, bringing people together to better understand what the opportunities are, because, and also another point of clarification, I know that the good delegate is from one of our major counties, but this is an urban park. I just want to make sure it's urban. It's surrounded by rural areas, but Cumberland's urban. I just want to make sure you get your urban cred out here.
It is, and we've got the federal property right there too. So it's state, urban, federal. I mean,
right.
It's prime for what you look at for partnership park or whatnot.
No, I'm looking at the pictures. It looks very lovely. This is obviously an opportunity to make it a bigger economic engine. You already have, I think, the vision. You're just looking at how to connect a few extra dots. And I mean, the state wants to be a partner in helping every part of the state thrive. And so I want to thank you for your stewardship and leadership, even when it's sometimes been very difficult. I just want to say thank you for your longtime service to the state.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And
Absolutely.
anytime, hey, you guys come on out.
It looks fun. I'm about to say summer trip might be.
Yes.
Any additional questions from the members? Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. And you're a volunteer. Thank you as well for your contributions. And that will conclude the budget hearing for Canal Place and also conclude all budget hearings for today.
Thank you. Thank you.